Before we start, I like to say that this happened to my cousin a couple of years ago. She lives in Mexico and she recently told me this story and I just couldn't get it out of my head. So I asked if she was willing to make an audio telling it how she remembers so we can post it online. And here's what she said. Sorry for the sloppy writing, but I'm trying to stay as true to her words as I can. I don't really like to talk about this since it comes across as ridiculous, so I appreciate everyone's sympathetic ears. Anyways, I'm not much of a storyteller, but I'll try my best to tell it as I remember. I'm a female in that I was in my late teens when this happened. My uncle owns a rural property right outside this big and dense forest in Mexico, and while visiting, I'd sometimes go around the forest listening to my iPod. Yeah, I know, right? Or reading, or really just cleaning up other after people. I mean, seriously, I get that humankind is trashy like that, but you should see all the garbage that these people leave around. It's honestly so sickening and disgusting. There's a part that really makes me mad though, because I've found wounded and sick critters as a result of their nasty, disgusting garbage. I remember it was our last Saturday and the climate was awful, foggy and kinda rainy. It should have been my first sign, but everyone wanted to go to some new wall that just opened up in the city, and the only person left behind is my very old aunt, who likes to watch those fake court shows, so I'll pass. I decided to go out for just a couple of hours, just while everyone came back for dinner, so I took my usual route, but the path was mostly clean due to the bad weather for this particular reason, and the fact that I've been getting busy with it. So I ended up going deeper than I've ever gone before. I know that was a really stupid decision, but you have to bear with me here. It was uncharted territory to me, and it was still early, and besides, there's not like there were any bears or lions out there, maybe a couple of coyotes at most. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked again, but the point is, I ended up at some sort of a hill that seemed like a hangout spot. You know, because of the bear cans and cigarette butts. But oh my goodness, the view was just perfect up there. I could even see my uncle's property from there, so I figured I'd stay there for a while after cleaning up. That was a big mistake though. We'll get more into that as the story goes on. I also forgot to mention that it was starting to rain, very heavily. While looking for refuge, which I found beneath some rock formation, I got lost and I started to get concerned, since the rain did last for a while and it was already getting dark. Don't get me wrong, at that age I was all for nature, and I still am, but I was not about to pass the night in the cold, dark, creepy-ass forest. Sorry. Anyways, I walked for a while and I started to note that the forest was really quiet. I attributed it to the rain, but it was getting dark and I still had no clue where the heck I was. I tried my phone several times, but it barely got signal back at the ranch, so no bars. After the sun fell, the forest was the scariest place you can imagine, and I really do mean that. Not a single sound, and since the clouds hid behind the moon, there really wasn't a lot of light either. Just a bad backlight for my flip phone. I was scared, cold, tired, and lost. I really needed to get home. I remember thinking it's been too long. Somebody should have came for me by now. But this stupid woods we're going through makes it almost impossible. I mean, I could have wandered off that far, but the fact that it was almost 10 p.m. at night, and that I wasn't found yet had me in tears most of the walk. I was really worried, but then I heard it. Priscilla. It was my dad, but at the same time, it wasn't. I remember running to where I thought I heard him, but something was off. I didn't care, I couldn't care. I was afraid and I needed my dad. I mean, it was his voice. Who else could it be, right? Then I heard it again, but it sounded like staggering almost and calm. I mean, he should be yelling for his daughter, or at least respond something else. Something isn't right, and this bad feeling in my stomach keeps getting worse. I heard it a third time. I knew I heard it right in front of me, in between a couple of trees. I kept calling for my dad the whole time I was running, but he didn't say anything other than my name. I mean, no lights, and how come my uncle or my mom was not with him? I froze. Something was telling me to get the heck up out of there, and I did. Call me coward, but I took off in another direction. When I heard this bizarre sort of growl or howl. Nope, nope. That was not my dad. I ran faster than Eugene bolted at me, and I mean it. Whatever the heck it was now following me. And I just remember running like heck when I stumbled into the path. The path I spent my whole summer cleaning up. I know you're going to say, but it all started to get very familiar, so I just ran in that direction as fast as I could. My lungs were about to collapse. The terrain was damp, but I was not going to let that ghost or whatever it was catch me, especially since I was so close to the barn. Eventually, I gave in and I collapsed. This is it! Whatever it was going to catch up to me, but I was too busy running that I didn't even notice that whatever it was had stopped chasing me. I cried. I cried a whole storm. I don't care to admit it. After I got a hold of myself, I got the heck up out of there. Feeling a little confident since I knew the ranch was maybe 10 minutes away now. After that, I made it to the ranch. I told my family everything and they believed me. And we all hugged in the end. Wrong! I could see the ranch from afar now, and the search party heading this way. I was finally safe, but then I heard what sounded like a wounded dog. Now, this is probably the most stupid part of the story. I honestly don't know what I was supposed to do because I heard a wounded dog and it sounded like it was a potentially wounded animal. I yelled and one of my uncle's neighbors saw me and came my way. Everyone else followed soon after. So I figured I'd go check on that poor doggy. Then it hit me. A putrid stench, like rotting meat or I don't know. I almost puked, but when I got closer to the dog, it moved really strange, like it was twitching in the weirdest way. And it wasn't making any noises now. I don't know what it was that possessed me to look up, but to this very day, I regret it. I saw a pair of human eyes easily more than 6 feet tall, looking straight through me as if looking behind me. Behind me, my uncle's neighbor arrived just in time, armed with the most beautiful shotgun there ever was. When he arrived and shined his light towards the monster, I could see the whole picture. This thing was partially hiding just beyond the tree line. It was almost as if you take a bear and remove its flesh and you're just left with the bones and the fur. But what scared me the most was definitely its pose. One of the most disgustingly elongated hand had the carcass of a dead dog against the floor. A dog I've never seen around before in the other hand. It was placed in the air strategically just above me. If I've gotten closer a couple of more steps, I just realized the whole monster thing was trying to lure me. My uncle's neighbor clutched the shotgun and the rest of the party was steps away, so the thing just went back into the forest. The neighbor didn't grab me and pulled me back. After that, my family and the rest arrived, and I just broke down when I hugged my dad. My real dad this time. It's been a while since the incident, and although I consider myself to be a lady of science, I just can't chalk it up to just pure imagination. Those eyes looked human, but the rest was not something I'd ever seen before, so how can I imagine that? How can I imagine something I've never seen? I did do some research, though, and I came across a Skinwalker legend. It sounds close, but I don't think Navajo folklore extends all the way down to western Mexico. And second thing, what downs on me the most is that it first lured me with my dad's voice, and then instead of catching me, it tried to lure me again with a totally different tactic. And bear with me here, but I also think it was afraid of the gun. I'm not sure what it was, but I'm sure it was sentient, and that it's still out there. Growing up in central US, I've heard all of the myths and legends about skinwalkers. I never really gave them any merit up until last week. I've also heard that talking or thinking about them can draw them, but I need to tell someone. Anyone who will listen and not think I'm crazy. Please excuse any formatting areas as this is my first time telling a story and I am on mobile. Also excuse the length, I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. So let me start. Let me give you some background at least. My name is Dakota. I'm 26 years old and I've grown up around the Southern Rockies and the Superstition Mountains. You know, all of the vast wilderness. That would be Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico. All my life I've been drawn to the outdoors. Hiking, climbing, biking, rafting, kayaking, you name it and I've done it. I'm very experienced in all of these activities and have worked as a guide and survival instructor since the age of 19 years old. I've experienced many strange and possibly paranormal things during my time in the wild, but I'm rambling. Those stories can be posted separately if there is any interest in them. Anyway, last Friday I took some time off for myself just to get back in tune with the solitude of nature. I packed all my gear, finished going through my checklist and made sure to let some other guides know where I was headed and when I'd be back. I then loaded my gear into my four-wheeler and made sure that my dog Bear, who is a very, very protective German Shepherd, was comfy in the passenger seat. He is my lookout, adventure partner, and best friend. He never leaves my side, even to the point that all the small businesses around the long-forgotten mining town I call home welcome him happily. We set out shortly after 11 a.m. towards a canyon I'd recently discovered hidden away behind the thick brush and an apparent rock slide. After about 5 hours of driving through the dusty and desolate landscape, the trail continues on to between a passage through the mountainous cliffs. When we arrived, I parked the four-wheeler behind a large outcropping of boulders, took the keys and covered it with a colored tint window. Not that I was worried about theft, I was probably miles away from the nearest human. I covered it to keep out the unforgiving sun to prevent any melting damage. After getting the four-wheeler stashed away, I donned my pack and my sidearm, which is a large caliber Desert Eagle. There aren't many large animals out here, but I like guns and target shooting, so who cares if it's overkill? It's the last means of protection, and it will do the job. I surveyed the area. There was thick brush and dry foliage all around us, with a small foot trail I cleared from the four-wheeler at our rare and large rock pile, in front of us with sheer cliffs on either side. I skirted around the rock to the very narrow passage and behind on the left side. It was a tight squeeze, and I had to remove my pack and pull it in behind me. I had to side shuffle like this for about 20 feet with cold, jagged rock against my chest and loose boulders against my back. When I finally freed myself from the narrow crevice and looked around, my jaw dropped. All around me, the cliff walls were covered in ancient cave paintings and carvings, some of which I recognized from some other Native American sites, used probably as religious sites. But many of these symbols were new to me. The most notable was a large painting near where the trail continued on. It depicted a large figure whose head and antlers resembled that of a deer, but the body was long and narrow and strange as a ball. It's at times like these I wish I'd brought some piece of technology, such as a camera or my iPhone, but I usually leave them at house and only bring an emergency SAT phone. Intrigued, I left the opening and headed down the trail. I was surprised by the steep downward slope that seemed to be heading down further and further into the earth, and was even more surprised when the trail ended at the mouth of a large cave. A cave I hadn't known about? This couldn't get any better. I set down my pack and pulled out my flashlight. It was getting pretty dark, so I figured I'd just check out the opening and then get settled for the night. I wandered in a few feet and abruptly stopped when the floor dropped into a chasm. My flashlight barely penetrated the dark abyss below me. Disappointed that I needed to probably return the next day with camping gear and possibly a partner, I headed back towards the mouth of the cave, and Bear, who had strangely stayed put, had not followed me in. He must be tired, I thought, as I suddenly started to realize my own fatigue. After 5 hours of driving and nearly 4 hours of hiking, I started a small fire with some light newspaper logs I packed in, which burned for a surprisingly long time. Heated up some water for some dehydrated omelet and gave Bear his bag of kibble. After a not-so-quite satisfying meal, I unrolled my sleeping bag and got comfortable with the fire by my side, and the distant view of stars peeking between the distant cliff tops, that shelter me from the rest of the world. With that peaceful thought, I dozed off to the sound of the crackling fire and Bear snoring beside me. I sleepily checked my watch when I was nudged awake. It was almost 3 in the morning. I softly pushed Bear's head away from nudging me so I could go back to sleep. But that's when, in the dim firelight, I saw his teeth bared and head low, beside me in a very protective position. He was staring towards the mouth of the cave, with the deep guttural growl emanating from his throat. More alert now, I clumsily grabbed my flashlight and unholstered my pistol, my finger ready to switch off the safety just in case. I motioned to Bear to be quiet, which was a very handy skill that had taken a lot of time to learn. On command, he quieted but still snarled, staring at the dark hole in the cliff. I illuminated the edge of the drop-off, my gun aimed with the beam, and we listened. For a few minutes, all I heard was silence besides my heartbeat. Then, faintly, I heard it. I still can't describe it, but I will try my best. It sounded like the bleat of a goat and the growl of a wild cat coming together to form words that seemed so broken and foreign. Quiet at first, it was accompanied by a clacking and scraping sound, getting closer and closer. I straightened my eyes to see the edge of the beam of light. What I saw next, I'm sure, has been burned into my mind's eye, and I'll never forget it. In the light, long, rotten fingers with thick, black claws curled around the lip and proceeded to pull something up and over into the cave. This thing pulled itself to standing. It was about 6 feet tall with long deer-like legs, too skinny to support it, and it ended in small hooves that seemed to float above the ground.
The body looked semi-human, but a skeleton draped with rotting, stinking flesh, with patches of mangled fur and ribs protruding from the chest. The smell was wretched, and I wanted to look away, to vomit, and to run, but I was paralyzed with fear, and I kept staring at the long, curled antlers, the warped and twisted body, long arms hanging loosely and front claws scraping the ground. But mostly the disturbing, contorted mix of human and animal intertwined to make a face so haunting I will remember vividly on my dying day, I'm sure. And when it locked on my view, with its empty rotted sockets, it met my eyes, and then I heard it. Quietly but all around me, that horrid howl mingled words. Lead me, help you. With that, I snapped out of my paralyzed state, switched to safety off, and pulled the trigger. Once, twice, 3 times from only 3 feet away. All I know is that I woke up fully, and I sprinted out of there as fast as I could with my dog, of course. I don't remember much else of what happened. I just remember that bear was barking and that I could see the peak of sunlight. I also remember that I kept on hearing that evil voice echoing behind me. So I finally got to a safe place, and as I said before, I don't remember. I probably was just running and running until I felt like I was safe. I must have fallen down on the ground or somewhere, because when I woke up in our shack, I'm pretty sure my dog and I was uninjured. But I was forever scared for my life. Pretty sure my dog was too. It keeps me awake every night since, and I needed to tell somebody, to warn somebody. Please, if you see the carving of the thing, or see an unknown cave, please do not enter it.
First of all, I'd like to say I am a teenager from Scotland. I have lots of friends, but I stay in a rural area, so I have to walk to most of my friends' houses because the transportation there isn't so good. I'm a keen walker, though, and it keeps me fit and healthy. The surroundings are encapsulating by day, but little did I know about how horrific they would be at night. One night, I was walking with a group of friends in the cold, harsh winter weather to go to another one of my friends' house. You know, for some pre-party drinks. This was because of my friend moving away from us and we wanted to celebrate his exit in style. To take a shortcut and spend less time wandering cold, we decided to cut through the woodland area located near my friend's house where we were going to have the pre-drinks. I live in a rural area. There's not much that roam through the woods except dog walkers and hikers as the woodland is on a peak. As we'd entered into the forest area, we heard a high-pitched white noise laughing sound from afar. Thinking it was a group of people drinking and camping, we all dismissed it, after sharing a look of panic and anxiety. In a huddled mass to keep ourselves warm, we walked deeper into the forest, flinching at anything possible, literally like a breath of ours that was a little too loud than normal. However, the silence was broken when we heard our shy friend Adam shout, "Guys, I think I see something," and then he pointed to a tree. Thinking it was a joke and unwillingly to accept it, we just laughed it off until we heard the exact same sentence that Adam just said that came from the trees. Covering our eyes, we all looked up, and what I saw makes me sick to the pit of my stomach. An elongated, skinny-necked dog-like man sat at the top branches of a nearby oak tree. As it was night, we seen a hollow, black shadow stare at us with piercing champagne-colored eyes. The being stretched out its super long fingers. No, wait, claws. None of us said a word. What is there to say? After locking eyes with my groups of friends, we just stood still in silence. I don't know why we didn't try and move. It was almost as if the belt creature just kept us there, staring at him, but we did keep our distance. My heart skipped a beat as I felt Adam grab my arm, and before I knew what I was doing, I was running up the hill, refusing to turn back, because I heard that same noise, and it just scared me. But this time it was louder, shaking the trees. All I could feel was a cold sweat run down every inch of my body, as our main priority was to outrun this monster. The moment we made it back to Adam's house, we ran to his room, slammed the bedroom door, and took what we felt like our last breath in a long time, being the emotional person that I am, and I broke into tears. We told Adam's mom about the experience, and she was worried, but assured us that it was our overactive imagination. But I know what I saw, and I believe that it was a skinwalker. Due to some intensive research on Adam's laptop, we googled the general features of what we saw, and found it to be uncanny to those of skinwalkers. I've never heard of those creatures before, and I thought it was a good idea to share my experience here.
I'm also intrigued by the creatures, yet it terrifies me to my core. The nakedness and emptiness left me feeling sorry for the thing. Looking at it, I felt deep sadness and sympathy like none before. However, after it scaring me like that, I'm not willing to go back into the woods again, especially not at night.